Hello, everyone. My name is Lane Little, and I am the director of the Pauly Friedman Art Gallery at Misericordia University in Dallas, Pennsylvania, which is in Northeast Pennsylvania. Welcome to the Compulsory Measures Virtual Roundtable. This is one of a series of 9 interviews that we're conducting with all of the artists who are participating in Compulsory Measures, Repetition, and Ritual. This series has been made possible in part by a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. It's a CARES grant called Humanities in the Time of COVID-19, Fostering Community Dialogue. In this episode, we're talking with Kristy Deetz. Kristy Deetz is a professor and chair in the art discipline at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. Her art has been exhibited from coast to coast and featured in Encaustic Art in the 21st Century, Encaustic Art, the Complete Guide to Creating Fine Art with Wax and Full-Range Color Painting for Beginners. She frequently serves as a visiting artist and has led many painting and drawing workshops in Haystack, Oxbow, Penland, Anderson Ranch, and Aramont. Her awards include CCAC's Award for Excellence in Teaching, Graphics Design Silver Award, and the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay's Founders Award for Excellence in Scholarship. Recently, she held an Erasmus visiting lectureship at the University of Kassel, Germany, and attended a residency at the Burren College of Art in Ireland. Deetz holds a MFA from Ohio State University and a BFA from Bowling Green State University. Kristy, welcome, and thank you for participating in this virtual roundtable series. For those of you watching, please submit your questions and comments using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Kristy, please tell us more about your practice, and then I'll ask you some follow-up questions.
Oh, and thank you so much, Lady, for all that you've done to make all of this possible. I know you had a lot of last-minute work and just such an excellent job. And thanks also to Reni Gower. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be part of her projects. I'm going to just dive in there quickly and try to probably show a lot of images. This first, I'll do screen share here if I can get this all going. Excellent. The paintings that I made for Compulsory Measures actually go back to ideas from an earlier series that I worked on. And this will show you the process of how I made those paintings, which are very similar to the ones that are in Compulsory Measures. We need elevator music or something.
I agree. That's amazing, though, to see that in process work.
So that gives you some idea of what I did for the series in the show. And I'm going to switch to my PowerPoint. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, excellent. These are the first 2 images are slides of 2 pieces that are in the show. And just taking the ideas that were in those paintings was called the Veil series. So I'm, in short, thinking of these images of wrinkled cloth that I sort of painstakingly folded and wrinkled. And then I would hang in my studio and light with very strong directional lighting, and then paint that on a gessoed piece of cotton scarf, and then I eventually mounted on cotton, and it has a hanging device on the back. So it looks a little bit like it's floating on the wall. And I think of these as liminal boundaries. They also reference the body in terms of wrinkles and folds, and a really fluid space. I think they intersect my interest in language and philosophy, particularly Deleuze's ideas of the fold, which is essentially thinking of ideas as being rhizomatic or going in every direction, and a kind of play with ideas, even though it's very literal. And also the idea of something in the shadows is obscured, something in illuminated is clarified, but it's also in flux. To move kind of backward in time, to what happened after the small drapery series, veil series that inspired the work in the show. I was on sabbatical and went on the Piero della Francesca trail in Italy to view Piero della Francesca's works on site and in a few of the museums there. And I was looking for something to just kind of break open my work and go into a new direction. So what I came up with were the series entitled Through the Veil, which let me bring in visual imagery from all kinds of culture, high and low art. And in the background of this painting, there's an embedded image of Piero's resurrection. You can kind of see in the center, there's a Christ image and a soldier at the very bottom. I'm not sure how that translates on a screen. And then a Victorian image of a rabbit and Ugrasura, an Indian snake god. And so these are all different kinds of resurrections and questioning the viewer's position in the painting. The snake is wrapping around the painting. Are you looking through or into something? And so forth. So they're very playful and they have a lot of humor. And one character that started to appear in the series is actually based on my cat, Bingley. And his name the name for him in the series is Kitty Boy, and Rabbit always appears. And they're kind of buddies that travel in and out of these spaces. And then I'm also in dialogue with artists, current artists from all time periods. So you see a Georgia O'Keeffe sky there. And this is Rabbit and Kitty Boy escape the postmodern radar. This is where's Kitty Boy? Rabbit is on carrot legs, sort of symbolizing earth, but also desire, the dangling carrot on a string. And Kitty Boy is the Zen sage sitting on the edge of the pond fishing, and Rabbit's just desperately looking for his buddy, and the painting is about to unfold. The Chinese landscape moves in and out. This is Rabbit and Kitty Boy mending the fabric of meaning, and it's a St. George and the Dragon. Instead of the sword, there's the needle and thread. Persian landscape. This is somnambulists, basically sleepwalkers. And there's Rabbit, Kitty Boy, and actually Bo Doggy. And they're based on masks, Halloween masks that I painted and photographed. They painted them white and then found onesies to put on them. So they're moving in this strange landscape where the space is the moon in front or behind. There's a hollow instead of an object. This is targeting Toyman's rabbit using an image from Toyman's paintings of a rabbit in a television screen and a hummingbird ready to touch the lips that are in the center of the target. Again, these are just a few of the series. This was one of the last, Hank's Rebirth Dilemma, which is an image in honor of my father who passed away that year, and contemplating his rebirth. These are all the possibilities of his what he might be born as, all stitched together, and also reflecting different aspects of his personality. And I introduced embroidery in this image. My husband is a scholar and writer and medieval language and literature. He does a lot of creative work, and we teamed up together fairly recently, and he did a series of stories responding to Through the Veil series. And they play with the images and they add something new as well. So it's a kind of reverse illustration process, but we came up with the singular adventures of Rabbit and Kitty Boy. So if you're looking for images of my work and want to read that text that in a way explains the paintings and also plays with them, it's available on Amazon. That series, I'm going to try to go through these quickly, led me to Holidays Unfolding, which really focuses concepts and ideas and probably complicates it seems like I could never make something really simple. If I start out doing that, it becomes really complicated. Marty and I have talked about that. Um, but this is Easter falling, and it's taking all the American holidays and sort of unraveling them. And what I'm doing is creating a pattern for the paintings that's based on previous paintings of drapery images that allude to different Renaissance paintings. And the pattern is printed on silk. And then I put the painting on top of that, and then I end the painting with embroidery. So this is Easter falling. Here's a detail. Valentine's Day exploding. Thanksgiving sliding. So there's always a cartouche or framed area that will take a close-up of the pattern that's in the background. So again, these confuse space too. You're wondering what's on top. Is it slanting down or coming out? What's the space behind a thought balloon or an ellipse, or just what's going on, what's coming in, what's coming out. And they mix up values and beliefs a little bit later in the series. I think these are sort of odd amalgamations, and then they become much more focused and about social commentary. This is Labor Day circling, and again, the sort of rabbit of desire, the large, medium, and smalls, almost representing like different generations of like continually just, what are we after, going around in circles and circles forever and ever. And of course, this is the Trump rabbit on the hot dog flotilla, trumpeting there in Independence Day, cracking and a kind of semblance of the American flag in the background while bombs bursting in air. And all of the rabbits that are floating along, their bombs planted on their hot dog boats, and things are rather dire. This is New Year's Eve pausing. So you'll see that in some of these it's mostly rabbits, and then Rabbit and Kitty Boy join each other again. And here they are in New Year's Eve pausing. And if you see in the very background, there's a line of rabbit's feet that are hanging as decorations. Not so lucky. And in the television screen, there's that rabbit trumpeting again. And the landscape there is actually from the Battle of Troon in World War I. And all of the rabbits there are have their eyes closed, not seeing, and sort of drunkenly absorbed in their own celebration and inebriation. This is more recent too. I was thinking that the eyes in this are almost like the eyes you see from people that are masked now. But there are other threads it's pulling in different directions, I think. Also has just a number of social issues going on in it, pulling in different directions. So the stage, these all play with still life ideas. So it's not really such a still life, even though still life traditionally is dead life. These are both play with that idea, nature mort, but then they're also extremely moving and about dynamic spaces and places where things are happening. So this is Friends Day hiding. So the rabbit and kitty have been through a lot. They're, scars and stitching and a patch over their eyes, but they're dancing with their banjos, which is somewhat of a problematic image if you stop and think of it. And then the performance where the cane moves in from the side, ready to take the bad performers out. And the window with the butterfly, what is that? What's the connotation there? And the thought and speech balloons are giving close-ups of the pattern. And I tried to make the pattern, I really manipulated this a bit more to look almost like dragons or butterflies. And then the stitching that moves across, and the eyes behind the cloth that are very judgmental in a sense, or unempowered, or kind of a range of things. There's a lot of dark humor to these, and then they're also just funny as well. The last image is Flag Day Transforming, and this is the end of the series, and my husband just finished another set of stories for Holidays Unfolding, so he's in the process of editing that, and it will be called Holidays Unfolding: The Continuing Adventures of Rabbit and Kitty Boy. But here, the rabbit with the desiring legs is coming to the brink, the edge of the table or land, and lightning is flashing. There's another scene in the background of the ellipses that are stacked on top of each other that actually comes from an earlier painting that was called Knothole, and it has a dying pair in that space. And around the flowers in this painting are rare endangered species of flowers. I was thinking of, and then the flag that the rabbit is holding, and the idea of nationalism, and how can we transcend nationalism into something that's maybe focused in the environment. And the other rabbit, in a way, it's almost like a choice, the turning away rabbit. Either way, it's tough, and definitely turning away is not going to end up good. So that's what I got for images, and I guess I'll get out of screen sharing here. Okay.
So can I first just say that Bingley is the best name for a cat I have ever heard. I think I would call him Mr. Bingley all day.
Yeah, it's a funny story. He was sitting with my husband on the sofa, and when we were watching Pride and Prejudice, and it was the one, we always make Mr. Bingley kind of sandy-haired and ever so pleasant. Everybody loves him, and Bingley, our cat, is kind of like that. And I'd ask him, is your name Bingley? Because we were trying to figure out what to name him, and Bingley went, meow.
I love it. I love it. I'm very interested in the textures that you're creating, because there is an ambiguity to it. Is it almost look, some of them almost look like a really cozy sweater, and some of them look like more of the hand stitching that you were talking about. One of my students, when she wanted to know more about that process, are you working from still lifes? Are you planning things well in advance, or how much of this is happening as you're doing the work?
Do you mean the ones in the gallery?
Either the ones in the gallery or the series, the Kitty Boy series is so fascinating.
Oh, okay.
Are you arranging a still life on a table and just inserting?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Actually, all the paintings begin with closely observed drapery that I position and on a table, and then also on the wall, and then just paint that from observation, and then. But I must say, I have some templates that I have now of past paintings, and the Holidays Unfolding series is all done through Photoshop sketching. So I start with the concept, and I wanted to have one for every month. I think I have 13, 2 for the month of April or March. I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, it's actually done a lot through Photoshop sketching, and I'll begin with the pattern in the background, then manipulate the templates of painted fabric that I have, and maybe some other characters that I can appropriate from other paintings, and I'll make a complete sketch. And I pretty much transfer that then to the silk, the digital image, printed on silk, that I stretch over a canvas, and then transfer blow the sketch up to the size of the canvas and then do a transfer with transfer paper onto the canvas. And then I start painting from observation, and then I work all of the details up. So they're pretty slow. They're pretty slow. And then I end with embroidery. And that's kind of a task, punching through all of that, those layers. But it adds something. I like the idea that it is slow work by hand, and it almost adds a kind of sentimentality, an additional layer of sentimentality and handwork that probably pulls you into the surface. And there are the illusionistic textures and the real textures and patterns, and then the embroidery. Sometimes actually it's painted to look like embroidery, and then other times it's real embroidery. So in the same way that the fabric can look very real at a distance. And then when you see all the little tiny strokes, then it kind of shatters the illusion, and I think pulls you in with all of that handwork that's very repetitive and slow. And I've learned to become much faster at painting all of those wrinkles and folds as I go. And it's rather kind of contemplative, but I'm always thinking of the paintings, and I think they're rather conceptually complex. So it's like a hum in the back of my head or in my ear, a bug in my ear. So I'm always thinking of it. So they're rather intense to do. So in some ways, I know I was talking in our panel discussion with the rest of the artists of how I'm looking forward. And then also always a little bit afraid to dive into something very different. And I'm an artist that has made really big turns in different directions and different media. And I really like that. My work has really changed its appearance, and I've worked sculpturally and painterly and abstractly and just very different than anything from observation. But I think I like it that way. So,
well, if I can read you an excerpt from her paper that she wrote. So she was the only one that chose your work, and I think it's because she has a background in painting. My other students don't. So
okay.
she wrote, at first glance, it looks like a simple piece compared to the other busier works in the gallery. This is because the artist only chose 2 colors, and it looked like a sheet of fabric, not a painted image. There's not a solid space of just blue or yellow. One color is always overlapping another. The unity of strokes is what creates the wrinkled texture of the painting. The wrinkles create an impression of a sheet that was thrown in a ball on the floor and is now just being hung up.
That's nicely written. It's always good to hear what students will say. Yeah, I always learn a lot from my students, and their fresh take, fresh eyes. It always adds something. And I thank her for taking the time to look at the paintings and to think about them. Yeah.
I think she'll really enjoy your new series. I'll let her know about the Kitty Boy series. There's such an editorial storytelling quality to those that I think are very, again, ambiguous and illusionistic and very engaging to look at.
Yeah, and my husband's stories are really fun to read. They're filled with humor and in some ways parallel, but in his own way, some of the processes and things that I think about in terms of his unique voice that he adds to the project and his response. He's really great to work with, so I feel really fortunate.
So your current work with the trumpeting rabbit, are those driven by a particular cause? Are you? She was asking a little bit too about message. What kinds of messages do you want to get out of your work?
Well, definitely, Holidays Unfolding is social critique, or how we think might perceive a holiday. And it's much more complex than maybe all the nostalgia or the celebration. And then things like New Year's Eve pausing and the trumpeting rabbit. I mean, that's an obvious allusion to Trump. And that sort of destruction that's happening, in my opinion, through his actions. And where do we sit within all of that? What do we do? And with the upcoming election, I guess I can't help but think about that. And I hope I'm uncovering things or just helping people to stop and think. I'm not sure one can change people's mind, but perhaps artwork might.
I think that's the way I approach art that is has a political engagement to it, because we talk about things like aristocratic portraiture and more the 20th century activist art. You know, just learn to take risks. And I want my students to be encouraged to approach topics in a way that's you know, more of an exploration. This is a very rough time, I think, to be 18 to 22, and we're trying to approach not only how to deal with social issues, but how to deal with the information that's coming to us about social issues. So the interpretation of image and the understanding of not only how people are writing, but what's behind, what are some things that are concealed or revealed in the way they write and the way they construct stories. So I think your work is perfectly appropriate to those discussions here.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. And even the paintings in the gallery, in some ways, they are very minimal. And when they're flattened, when the fabric is flattened against the wall and I paint it, from a distance, some of those paintings can almost look like a monochrome painting. So it plays with, and monochrome painting art historically is thought of as being endless space and no space. And they're sort of icons of the absolute. And then the more illusionistic ones give a kind of weight or feeling or presence to the cloth. But it also makes you think there are allusions to like the Shroud of Turin, which was an invented image. Also, there's something very analytical about the structure of those. I fold the grid in, so that helps me paint the painting by following the grid that's in the painting. So that's very analytical. But then the process, I never quite know how that's going to all go. It depends on the viscosity of the pigments and the all over look of how the painting looks. That's something very subtle, probably for a painter, maybe more than a non-painter. But yeah, so trompe-l'oeil, monochrome, abstraction, representation, where is the line between those things? And that becomes a larger, a metaphor for larger issues too. So.
And I wasn't thinking too, when we were looking at your paintings, I wasn't thinking about the light source, where you place your light, how much you have to play with it to get the right effect. Does your light stay in the same place, or does it change depending on the lighting in your studio?
No, I was thinking maybe I'm trying to think of how many years. It took me a while to figure out the most efficient way of doing all of this and the right kind of cloth that could be folded. And it's like just a simple cotton muslin that it retains the memory of your fold quite easily. And someday I'm going to do an installation with those and light the fabric in just the right way. I think that could be the art in itself. And also I've recently even thought of, from the holidays unfolding, diverging just a little bit here, the tracings, the transfer papers that I've used for those. I save everything anymore from the process because I think of those as artworks too. Those are absolutely beautiful. They're maps of mark making over and top and years of tracings, and they're just gorgeous. They could be a show in themselves, but and they're much less deliberate, but still, to me, artwork. Yeah, part of the process. Yeah, process art. So.
Before we close, do any of our participants or attendees have any questions for Kristy?
Hi, I don't know if I have a question so much, but just an observation. You know, the complexity of the work, I think, can be restated. It's not just conceptually complex, which it obviously is, but it's visually complex, and then it's also technically complex. And there's all of this overlay, interlay, and weaving together of all of these facets that does make the work fit the theme of the exhibition, you know, exceptionally well. The obsessiveness of all of that being combined. And, you know, I can only say that, you know, the paintings, you can look at them over and over and over again and see new things in them every time you come to them. And just looking at your slideshow today, Kristy, I'm like, oh, I never saw that before. I'm like, whoa, okay. And, you know, I mean, I love working with you and finding ways to make your work make sense with my work, but it just has so many variables and humor and point of view, and it's just work that feeds you and gives back, you know, so much over time that it's just can't encourage people enough to just spend more time with the work.
Oh, thank you. That's like the supreme compliment. And back at you. I really so admire what you do, and your paintings. We actually have a number of things in common with our work, I think, and sort of maybe an ultimate goal. And that Reni's just multi-talented and a dear friend. So
well, yeah. I do think we have things in common, but I think that they play off each other more almost as opposites or counterpoints.
I can see why you say that. That's well put. Yeah, counterpoints.
Well, we certainly enjoyed having both of your work in the gallery. It's given our students a nice variety of things to think about and moods to get into. I encourage students to just sit and hang. They don't even have to visit with me about the art if they want. Just, you know, scroll through their phone if they want to, if they're hanging out. It's created a very contemplative atmosphere. So we're going to close, but for those watching, I hope you can catch the remaining 3 episodes of the series this afternoon, Friday, September 25 at 1 p.m. I'll be talking with George Benitez. And on Monday, September 28, we'll be talking with Al Denyer at 1 p.m. EST. And on Wednesday, September 30, we'll be talking with Joan Elliott at 11 a.m. EST. A catalog of the entire exhibition is available for purchase and download from blurb.com, and we'll post that link on our website. We'll make the full series of talks available on our website and YouTube, and please find us on Facebook and Instagram for more updates on our programs. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Kristy and Reni, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you, Reni. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming, Reni.
Oh, sure. Always.